The showroom was packed, every seat filled, the kind of Saturday night crowd that made the Desert Inn the hottest spot on the Las Vegas Strip in the summer of 1968. High rollers throwing money across casino tables, celebrities ordering top-shelf liquor at the bar, and in the backstage dressing room, Dean Martin was getting ready for his 11 o'clock show. Just another night in Vegas, another performance, another paycheck. Except it wasn't. Because sitting front row center was a man who would change everything about this evening. A man who controlled unions across the Midwest. A man whose business dealings required face-to-face meetings in dark corners of expensive casinos. A man whose name made people nervous. Vincent Marcello. Vinny to his friends, Mr. Marcello to everyone else. Vinny was a Chicago mob boss with connections that stretched from Detroit to Kansas City. He ran gambling operations, controlled legitimate businesses, and had the kind of power that came from knowing exactly when to use violence and when to simply let his reputation do the work. He was in Vegas for meetings that couldn't happen over the phone, the kind of business that required handshakes and eye contact and conversations that would never be written down anywhere. But Vinny also enjoyed being seen. He liked people knowing he was in town, liked the power that came from sitting front row at the biggest show on the Strip, liked watching people's faces change when they recognized him. Dean Martin knew exactly who Vinny Marcello was. Everyone in Vegas knew. You couldn't work in this town, couldn't perform in these casinos, couldn't cash checks this big without knowing who really controlled things, who owned what, who to respect, who to fear, who to avoid. And Dean had always been careful. He performed in mob-owned casinos, took their money, thanked them politely, but he never socialized with them, never went to their parties, never borrowed money, never asked for favors, never got into debt with men who collected debts in ways that didn't involve lawyers. Frank Sinatra had complicated friendships with these men. Sammy Davis Jr. had borrowed money from them, owed them favors. But Dean stayed professional. Stayed separate, stayed clean, until tonight. 3 years earlier, in 1965, Dean's older brother had died. Guglielmo Crocetti, they called him Bill. Heart attack at 56 years old, way too young. Dean hadn't talked about it much publicly because grief was private and family was sacred, but people knew. In a town like Vegas, information traveled fast. People talked, and certain people paid very close attention to the things they learned about you. Dean was in his dressing room going through his usual pre-show routine when someone knocked on the door. "Come in." A man in an expensive suit entered, one of Vinny's associates. The kind of guy who looked like he ironed his shirts with military precision and kept a gun in an ankle holster. "Mr. Marcello would like to say hello before the show." Dean set down his drink and looked at the man in the mirror. "Tell Mr. Marcello I appreciate the thought, but I'm preparing right now. I'll see him after the show if he wants. He's in the front row. He'd like to see you now." It wasn't a request. Dean knew that immediately. When men like Vinny Marcello sent their people to fetch you, you went, or you made a very dangerous enemy. Dean stood up slowly. 5 minutes, that's all I have." He followed the associate through the backstage area, past the curtain, down the hallway that led to the showroom floor. Vinny was waiting near the entrance, smoking a cigar, surrounded by 4 men who looked like they'd been hired specifically because they knew how to hurt people and enjoyed it. "Dean Martin!" Vinny's voice boomed through the hallway. He was short, thick around the middle, with hair slicked back so tight it looked painful. His smile was wide, but his eyes were cold. "The King of Vegas! I wanted to say hello before your show."
Dean shook his hand. Vinny's grip was firm, too firm, the kind of handshake designed to prove something. "Mr. Marcello, good to see you. Vinny, call me Vinny. We're both Italian boys, right? From the old neighborhood. Well, Different neighborhoods, but you know what I mean. Sure. I heard your show was incredible. Wanted to see it myself. Brought some associates. We're really looking forward to it. I appreciate that. Vinny took a long puff of his cigar and the smoke drifted between them. You know, I knew your family back in the day, in Steubenville. Dean's face remained completely neutral. Is that right? Yeah, your old man had that barber shop. My uncle used to go there. Said he was a good man, hard worker, immigrant values, you know?
He was. And you had a brother, right? Older brother? What was his name? Something cold moved through Dean's chest. Bill. We called him Bill. Bill, right. Vinny snapped his fingers like he'd just remembered. I heard he died a few years ago. Heart attack, was it? That's right. That's tough. Losing family. It's the worst thing. Vinny's voice was sympathetic, but his eyes were studying Dean's face, watching his reaction like a scientist observing an experiment. How old was he? 56. 56? That's young. Way too young. Vinny shook his head slowly. You know what probably did it? Stress. I bet he was stressed all the time, trying to keep up with his famous little brother. That'll kill a man, you know? Living in someone else's shadow, never quite measuring up. Always wondering why you got all the talent and he got nothing. That kind of resentment, it eats at you, literally eats at your heart, until one day it just stops beating. One of Vinny's associates chuckled. The other stayed silent, watching. Dean looked at Vinny, really looked at him, and Vinny must have seen something in Dean's eyes because his smile faltered for just a second. That's a terrible thing to say, Dean said quietly. What? I'm just being honest. That's probably what happened. No, you're being cruel. There's a difference. Vinny's smile came back, but it was harder now, sharper. Cruel? I'm just stating facts. You're making jokes about my dead brother in front of strangers, suggesting he died because of jealousy or resentment when you didn't know him, never met him, have no idea what kind of man he was. Hey, I'm just saying. I know what you're saying, and I'm telling you to stop. The hallway went very quiet. You could hear the slot machines dinging in the distance. You could hear someone laughing at the bar. You could hear Vinny's associates shifting their weight, tensing up. You didn't tell Vinny Marcello to stop doing anything, ever. Vinny's face reddened. You've got some nerve, Martin. You know who I am? I know exactly who you are. Then you know you don't talk to me like that. I'll talk to you however I need to when you're disrespecting my brother's memory. Vinny stepped closer. They were face to face now. Dean could smell the cigar smoke on his breath, could see the anger building in his eyes, could feel the tension radiating off the four men surrounding them. Your brother was nobody, Vinny said, his voice dropping lower. A nothing. He died a nobody. The only reason anyone even knows he existed is because of you. And even that didn't help him. He still died broke and forgotten. Dean's hands clenched into fists. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to swing, to punch this man in the face, to make him pay for what he'd just said. But Dean didn't move, just stood there, completely still, his face calm, his voice even quieter than before. Mr. Marcello, I'm going to give you a chance right now, a chance to apologize, to take back what you said, to show that you have even a shred of decency. I don't apologize. I know you don't, but you're going to tonight, or you're going to regret it. Vinny actually laughed. Regret it? What are you going to do? You're a singer, an entertainer. You think you can threaten me? I'm not threatening you. I'm promising you. If you don't apologize right now, I'm going to walk onto that stage and tell the 300 people in that showroom exactly what you just said. I'm going to tell them that Vincent Marcello from Chicago made jokes about my dead brother, suggested he died from jealousy, mocked his memory. And then I'm going to tell them that you're sitting front row. I'll point you out, make sure everyone sees your face, make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are. So what? Nobody cares. Everyone will care because I'll make them care. Vinny's smile disappeared completely. You wouldn't dare. Try me. You've got about 30 seconds to apologize, or I'm walking onto that stage. You do that, you're making an enemy, a dangerous enemy. I already have one. The question is whether you're smart enough to fix it." They stared at each other. Dean could hear Vinny's associates shifting nervously. This wasn't how things usually went with their boss. People didn't stand up to Vinny Marcello, didn't threaten him back, didn't call his bluff. The seconds ticked by. 15, 20, 25. Finally, Vinny spoke. His voice was tight, forced. "I apologize for my comments about your brother. Say his name." "What?" "Say his name, not your brother, his name."
Vinny's jaw clenched so hard Dean could see the muscles working. "I apologize for my comments about Bill, and you were wrong to say what you said." A long pause. "I was wrong to say what I said." Dean nodded once. "Good. Now you're going to sit in that showroom. You're going to watch my show, and you're going to sit there quietly. No comments, no jokes, no disrespect. Can you do that?" "I can do whatever I want. Can you do that?" Dean's voice never rose, but something in his tone made Vinny stop. "Fine, I'll behave." "Good. Enjoy the show." Dean walked away, back toward his dressing room. Behind him, he could hear Vinny's associates talking in low, urgent voices, could feel their eyes burning into his back. In his dressing room, Dean's hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage, pure, white-hot rage that he'd kept contained while facing Vinny. Rage he couldn't show. Rage he'd locked behind his eyes while standing inches from a man who'd made jokes about Bill being jealous, about Bill dying from resentment, about Bill being a nobody. His stage manager knocked and entered. "5 minutes, Dean." Dean took a deep breath, let it out slowly, pushed the anger down, locked it away in some deep place where it couldn't touch the performance. He had a show to do, 300 people expecting to be entertained. He couldn't bring this darkness onto the stage with him. He walked to the wings, heard the band playing his intro music, heard the announcer's voice booming through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, the Desert Inn is proud to present Dean Martin." The curtain opened, the spotlight hit him, and Dean walked onto that stage with a smile on his face like absolutely nothing had happened. For the next 90 minutes, Dean was perfect. He sang every song flawlessly, told jokes that had the audience howling with laughter, charmed every single person in that room, except one. Vinny Marcello sat in the front row with his arms crossed, stone-faced, looking like he wanted to kill someone. Dean noticed but didn't acknowledge him, didn't make eye contact, didn't give him the satisfaction of knowing he'd gotten under Dean's skin. After the show, Dean went straight to his dressing room. His manager was already waiting, pacing back and forth. "Dean, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "Vincent Marcello is telling people you disrespected him, that you threatened him. His associates are spreading it around the casino. This could get very ugly." Dean poured himself a drink. "Let it get ugly. I don't care." "Dean, this is Vinny Marcello. He's not some drunk tourist. He's connected. He's dangerous. You can't just—" "I can and I did. He made jokes about Bill, about my brother. Nobody does that. I don't care who they are." "But—" "No buts. I'm not apologizing. I'm not backing down. If Vinny wants a war, he can have one, but I'm not letting anyone mock my brother's memory. Not for any reason, not from anyone." His manager left, shaking his head. Dean sat alone in his dressing room thinking about Bill. Bill had been 7 years older, had taken care of Dean when they were kids, had taught him how to box, how to stand up to bullies, how to be a man. When Dean got into show business, Bill had been proud, never jealous, never resentful, just happy for his little brother. They'd stayed close. Dean had helped Bill financially when he could, had made sure Bill's kids got good educations, had been there for family gatherings whenever his schedule allowed. And when Bill died, Dean was devastated, had cried more than he'd cried in his entire adult life, had felt a hole open up in his heart that never quite healed. So when Vinnie Marcello made jokes about Bill being jealous, about Bill dying from living in Dean's shadow, it was the worst possible thing he could have said. The next morning, Dean got a call from Frank Sinatra. "Dean, what the hell happened last night?" "Who told you?" "Everyone's telling me. The story's all over Vegas. You stood up to Vinnie Marcello. Are you crazy?" "He made jokes about Bill." "About Bill? Your brother?"
Yeah. What did he say? Dean told him everything. The comments about jealousy, the suggestions that Bill died from resentment, the mocking tone. When he finished, Frank said something that would have made a sailor blush. "I would have killed him," Frank said. "I thought about it." "But you didn't. You just made him apologize. Dean, do you understand what you did? Vinnie doesn't apologize to anyone, ever. You made him do it in front of his guys. He's not going to forget that. I don't care if he forgets it or not." "Dean, I know you're angry. I know Bill meant everything to you, but you need to be careful. Vinnie's not someone you cross lightly." "I didn't cross him lightly. I crossed him because he deserved it." Frank sighed. "Let me make some calls, see if I can smooth this over." "Don't." "What?" "I don't want it smoothed over. I want Vinnie to know that there are consequences when you talk about people's families, when you mock the dead, when you think your power gives you the right to be cruel." 2 days later, Dean got a visitor at his house, a man he'd never met before, well-dressed, polite, but clearly connected. "Mr. Martin, my name is Anthony Cerno. I'm from New York. I'm here on behalf of certain people who are concerned about the situation between you and Mr. Marcello." Dean didn't invite him in, just stood in the doorway. "What situation?" "The confrontation at the Desert Inn, the words that were exchanged, the apology that was extracted." "Extracted? I asked for an apology. He gave one. That's it." "Mr. Marcello feels he was coerced, that you threatened him with public humiliation if he didn't comply. I gave him a choice. He chose to apologize rather than be embarrassed. That's not coercion, that's consequences." Cerno smiled slightly. "Mr. Martin, I understand your position, and between you and me, I think Mr. Marcello was out of line. What he said about your brother, that was disrespectful, wrong. But you need to understand something. Men like Vinnie don't apologize. When they do, it costs them, makes them look weak, makes other people think they can be pushed around. That's not my problem. It is your problem when Vinnie decides to make you pay for embarrassing him." Dean met Cerno's eyes. "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning from people who'd rather not see this escalate, who'd rather not see someone get hurt over something that should have stayed private. It was private until Vinnie made it public, by bringing it up in front of his associates, by making jokes in a hallway where anyone could hear. He made it public. I just responded." "I understand, but I'm asking you, as a favor, to let this go, to accept Vinnie's apology and move on, to let bygones be bygones." Dean thought about it for a long moment. "I'll let it go on one condition." "What's that?" "Vinnie never mentions my brother again, never talks about my family, never makes jokes about people I've lost. He does that, we're done, permanently." Cerno nodded. "I'll convey your terms, but I need something from you, too. You can't tell this story, can't talk about what Vinnie said, can't spread it around, because if you do, it becomes a bigger problem, a problem that has to be dealt with more seriously." "Are you threatening me now?" "I'm explaining reality. You embarrassed a powerful man. That man is willing to let it go if you let it go. But if you keep poking the bear, eventually the bear bites back." Dean stood silent for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine, I won't talk about it. But if Vinnie comes near me again, if he says one word about Bill or any member of my family, all bets are off." "Understood. Thank you for being reasonable." Cerno left. Dean closed the door and leaned against it, feeling the weight of what had just happened. He'd stood up to a mob boss, had forced him to apologize, and now the mob was sending messengers to negotiate peace.
It should have felt like a victory, but it just felt exhausting.
That night, Dean's daughter, Deanna, came to visit. She was 16, bright, observant. She knew something was wrong. "Dad, are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart." "You don't look fine. You look tired, worried." Dean pulled her into a hug. "Just some business stuff. Nothing for you to worry about." "Is it about Uncle Bill?" Dean pulled back to look at her. "Why would you say that?" "Because you always look like this when you're thinking about him. Sad and angry at the same time." Dean's eyes got wet. "Yeah, it's about Uncle Bill. I miss him too. I know you do. He was always nice to me, always had candy in his pocket, always made time to play even when he was tired from work. That's who he was. Good, kind, selfless. Is that why you're upset? Because someone said something about him?" Dean was surprised. "How did you know?" "Mom told me. Said some man made jokes and you stood up for Uncle Bill. I'm proud of you." "Are you?" "Of course. Uncle Bill would have been proud too. He always said you were the toughest person in the family. Not the biggest or the loudest, but the toughest where it counts." She pointed to her heart. Dean hugged her again, holding on longer this time. "Thanks, sweetheart. I needed to hear that." Over the next few weeks, things stayed quiet. Vinnie Marcello left Vegas and went back to Chicago. The story of their confrontation spread through the underworld, but stayed out of the newspapers. And Dean kept performing, kept living his life, kept moving forward. But he never forgot what Vinnie had said, and he never forgot how it felt to stand up for Bill's memory, to defend his brother, even though Bill wasn't there to defend himself. 6 months later, Dean got word that Vinnie Marcello was back in Vegas, staying at the Stardust, doing business, keeping a lower profile than usual. Dean's manager told him, "Thought you should know, in case you want to avoid any places where he might be." "I'm not avoiding anyone." "Dean, you don't need another confrontation." "I don't want another confrontation, but I'm not hiding either." 2 nights later, Dean was having dinner at the Stardust's restaurant with Sammy Davis Jr. and Joey Bishop. They were laughing, telling stories, having a good time when a waiter came over. "Mr. Martin, there's a gentleman who'd like to speak with you. Mr. Marcello." The table went quiet. Sammy spoke first. "You don't have to." "It's fine." Dean stood up. "I'll be right back." He followed the waiter to a private booth in the back. Vinnie Marcello sat alone, a drink in front of him. He looked older than he had 6 months ago, tired. "Dean, thanks for coming over." Dean didn't sit down. "What do you want, Vinnie?" "To apologize, properly this time. Not because someone made me, because I want to." Dean studied him, looking for the catch, the angle. "Why?" "Because I've thought about what happened, about what I said, and I was wrong. Really wrong. I don't know why I said it. Maybe I was trying to test you. Maybe I was just being a bully. Maybe I was drunk on my own power. But whatever the reason, it was wrong." "Okay. I lost a brother too, long time ago. Younger brother. Got killed in a robbery. And when he died, I felt like part of me died with him. Like there was this hole that could never be filled. And people said stupid things, insensitive things, and it made me want to hurt them."
Vinnie looked up at Dean. "That's probably how you felt when I said what I said. And I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry." Dean sat down slowly. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've been thinking about legacy, about what I leave behind, and I don't want to be remembered as the guy who mocked a dead man, who was cruel for no reason, who used power to hurt people instead of help them. What do you want to be remembered as? Someone who made mistakes but tried to fix them, who could admit when he was wrong, who had some decency even in a business that doesn't reward decency." They sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Dean spoke. "Bill was a good man, the best man I ever knew. He worked hard, took care of his family, never asked for anything, never complained. And when I got successful, he was happy for me, genuinely happy, no jealousy, no resentment, just pride in his little brother." He sounds like a good man. He was. And when you suggested he died because of jealousy or stress from my success, it wasn't just wrong. It was the opposite of who he was. It was an insult to his memory, to his character, to everything he stood for. Vinny nodded. I understand, and I'm sorry. Not just for what I said, but for making you defend him against something that should never have been said in the first place. Dean looked at Vinny, really looked at him, saw something he hadn't seen before. Regret, genuine regret. Apology accepted. Really? Really. But Vinny, if you ever say anything about my family again, I won't. You have my word. Your word means something? It does to me. Maybe not to everyone, but to me, yeah, it means something. Dean stood up and extended his hand. Vinny shook it. Thank you, Vinny said, for giving me a second chance. Everyone deserves a second chance. Just don't need a third. Dean went back to his table. Sammy and Joey looked at him expectantly. Everything okay? Sammy asked. Yeah, everything's okay. What did he want? To apologize. For real this time. And you believe him? Dean thought about it. Yeah, I think I do. Years later, in 1976, Dean was performing at the MGM Grand. After the show, someone told him Vincent Marcello was in the audience. Dean had his security find Vinny and bring him backstage. Vinny looked even older now, grayer, moving slower, but his eyes were still sharp. Dean, great show. Thanks. What brings you to Vegas? Semi-retirement. I spend more time here now, less time in Chicago. The winters kill my knees. They talked for a few minutes about nothing important. The weather, the changes in Vegas, how the old places were being torn down and replaced with bigger casinos. As Vinny was leaving, he stopped. I wanted to tell you something about what happened back in '68. Ancient history, Vinny. Maybe, but it changed me, what you did, how you stood up for your brother. It made me think about my own brother, about how I'd want someone to defend his memory if someone disrespected it. And I've tried to be better. Not perfect, I'm still in the business I'm in, but better, more respectful, more aware of when I'm crossing lines. You taught me that, by not backing down, by making me face what I had done. Dean nodded. I'm glad something good came from it. Something good did come from it, so thank you. For having the guts to stand up to me when most people wouldn't, for showing me that power doesn't give you the right to be cruel, for defending someone who couldn't defend himself. Bill would have done the same for me. I believe that, and I believe that's what makes you different. You come from a place where family matters, where loyalty matters, where you don't forget the people who made you who you are.
They shook hands. This time there was no tension. No posturing, just two men who'd found mutual respect through conflict. When Vincent Marcello died in 1982, Dean was surprised to receive a letter in the mail. It had been written before Vinny's death, with instructions to mail it if he passed away. Dean, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I wanted to thank you one last time for that night at the Desert Inn, for standing up to me, for showing me what real strength looks like. It's not power. It's not intimidation. It's having principles and defending them no matter the cost. You had that. I didn't. But watching you, learning from you, it helped me find some of it before the end. Your brother Bill would be proud of you, not just for your success, but for the man you are. Thank you for defending his memory. Thank you for teaching me about honor. Vinny. Dean folded the letter carefully and put it in his desk drawer next to other meaningful correspondence. That night he took out an old photo of Bill, his brother standing in front of their father's barber shop in Steubenville, smiling at the camera, young, healthy, alive. I defended you, Bill, Dean said to the photo. When someone tried to disrespect your memory, when someone said terrible things, I stood up for you the way you always stood up for me. I hope that matters. I hope you know. He sat there for a long time, looking at the photo, remembering his brother.
the man who'd taught him to fight, how to stand tall, how to be tough when it mattered. Bill had been gone for 17 years, but Dean still missed him every single day, still felt that hole in his heart, still wished he could call him up and talk about nothing important. But Bill was gone, and all Dean could do was protect his memory, defend his legacy, make sure people remembered him as the good man he was. That's what Dean had done that night at the Desert Inn. When Vinnie Marcello made those jokes, when he suggested Bill had died from jealousy, Dean could have let it go, could have ignored it, could have chosen peace over principles, but he didn't. He stood up. He demanded an apology. He defended his brother's memory even though his brother wasn't there to know about it. Because that's what family means. That's what loyalty means. That's what love means. You defend the people you love even after they're gone, especially after they're gone. That's the real story of July 1968. Not that Dean Martin stood up to a mob boss, though he did. Not that he forced an apology from a dangerous man, though he did that too. But that Dean loved his brother so much that no threat, no danger, no consequence could stop him from defending Bill's memory. That's love. Pure, fierce, uncompromising love. The kind that doesn't fade when someone dies. The kind that lasts forever. The kind that makes you brave when you need to be. Dean Martin had that kind of love for his brother Bill, and nothing, not mob bosses, not fear, not self-preservation, could make him betray it. That's the lesson of that night. Not just about standing up to bullies, though that's part of it. Not just about having principles, though that's important too. But about love, about family, about defending the people who can't defend themselves. Dean's calm response to Vinnie Marcello shocked everyone, not because it was aggressive, but because it was so controlled, so measured, so absolutely unwavering. Dean didn't yell, didn't threaten violence, didn't lose his temper. He just calmly explained what Vinnie had done wrong, calmly demanded an apology, calmly explained the consequences if that apology didn't come. And then he walked away and did his show like nothing had happened. That's real strength. Not the kind that comes from muscles or weapons or power, but the kind that comes from love, from principle, from knowing who you are and what you stand for. Dean Martin knew who he was. He was Bill's little brother, and nobody, absolutely nobody, was going to disrespect Bill without answering for it. That's the man Dean was. That's the brother he was. That's the legacy he left. When Dean Martin died in 1995, his family found dozens of photos of Bill throughout his home, in his office, in his bedroom, on his refrigerator. His daughter, Deanna, said in an interview years later, "My father never got over losing Uncle Bill, never stopped missing him, never stopped thinking about him. And when someone disrespected Uncle Bill's memory, my father became a different person, still calm, still controlled, but absolutely immovable. Nothing mattered more to him than protecting the people he loved, and that included protecting their memory after they were gone." That's Dean Martin. That's his true character. That's what made him special. Not his voice, though it was magnificent, not his charm, though it was legendary, not his success, though it was undeniable, but his capacity for love, his loyalty to family, his refusal to let anyone, no matter how powerful, disrespect the people he cared about. A mob boss made a joke about Dean Martin's dead brother. Dean's calm response shocked everyone. Not because it was loud or violent or dramatic, but because it was so quietly, devastatingly, uncompromisingly protective. Dean defended Bill, made Vinnie apologize, and in doing so showed everyone watching what real strength looks like. It doesn't shout, it doesn't threaten, it doesn't lose control. It just stands firm, states principles, demands respect, and doesn't back down no matter what. That's Dean Martin. That's his legacy. That's why we still tell his stories decades after his death. Because he showed us how to love, how to be loyal, how to defend the people who matter most, even when they're gone, especially after they're gone.